What up? Welcome to the AfterBuzz live on Facebook, baby. We switched it up this week. Producer Dave is sitting over there. In case you don't know what you're watching right now on the Buzz Adams Morning Show Facebook page, it is the AfterBuzz. I'm your host, Brandon Coates. Producer Dave sitting right over there, and we wanted to switch it up a little bit. We normally do the AfterBuzz over on YouTube, but we wanted to see how Facebook worked out for this week, and maybe we'll do this for the next few weeks. Basically, the AfterBuzz, if you guys have any questions, comments, or anything, if you're watching this live on Facebook, you're more than welcome to hit up the Facebook chat right there. Going to cover a whole bunch of different topics. Quick history lesson for anybody who's maybe never been to an AfterBuzz. It started out as an AMA. If you aren't familiar with what an AMA is, it is an Ask Me Anything. And basically, it's it started out with the morning show, and then it just kind of morphed into this as the AfterBuzz. So thanks for being here, and should we just dive right into the topics?
Let's do it.
I mean, I can see that Buzz is watching. This is the one advantage of Facebook, is I can actually see who's watching. So hi there, Buzzley. Shouldn't you be working, my friend? Anyway, he just clicked off. I totally busted him. Anyway, so a few different topics today. One of the things that we're going to be talking about is that whole Ellen and George W. Bush thing. People were apparently upset about that. If you haven't been to a YouTube account called Defunctland, it's awesome. And I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit. But first, we're going to dive into the rabbit hole of Domino's Pizza and their website, and it apparently discriminating against blind people. So this is a story that popped up. It's in the Supreme Court, and the problem was you had a gentleman by the name of Guillermo Robles, who is blind. He alleges that he was unable to order a pizza from the Domino's website or mobile app because neither was accessible via screen readers, a type of software utilized by visually impaired people to browse the web and use other applications on computers and phones. So basically, he's saying, I wanted to use this website. I wasn't able to. Now I'm upset. I understand why some of this stuff was needed back in the day, why we needed to make laws, because we were a terribly racist and horrible country. There was a lot of things that were not good about this country that we needed laws to change for the better. But aren't we to the point now that we don't really need that? Like, why does this need to go to the Supreme Court? Why does this need to gobble up our court system? Wouldn't it be a lot easier for him to say, you know what? Don't go to Domino's. Clearly, they didn't think ahead and they didn't plan for your particular disability. Don't shop there. And then tell all your friends about it. And guess what? Once you punch them in the wallet, they're going to start to change things. And that is how, at least to me at this point, that's how we should be looking at some of these things rather than suing, rather than taking this to the Supreme Court, where it's like, is this really that much of a necessity when that pendulum has swung in the right direction over the past, what do you want to say, 60, 50 years or so? Like it started to swing in that proper direction, but now we're to the point where it's basically, if I'm upset because I feel I'm being discriminated against, I need to take it to the Supreme Court. It's a lot easier, I guess, to actually just discriminate yourself against them and say that, well, I'm not going to shop here. That's what happened in that one bakery back in Portland when it was technically Gresham, which is a suburb of Portland. And that's what happened with them, where they refused to make a cake for a gay couple. That's their right. It's their business. I'm a firm believer that you have the right to refuse service to anybody based on any of your beliefs. I don't care, because ultimately good's going to win out, because your business is going to go under, because we don't tolerate racism. I mean, obviously it still exists. We don't tolerate sexism. Obviously it still exists. These things are there, but I would hope the vast majority of the United States of America at this point believes that these are both things that are wrong. And what you'll do is, if you choose to not go to that business and you tell your friends and they choose to not go to that business, it's going to shut down. This isn't like the 1920s when, if that news broke out, all of a sudden everybody's showing up there because they're like, hooray for them for free speech and for basically being homophobic. That's not the way the country's run right now. And that's not what we are as a people. At least I hope we're not. Because if we are, then we're still screwed, man. Because we've been working on this thing for a long time. But I believe in their right to be able to serve whoever the hell they want. Now, where this comes on the flip side is when it comes to, corporations. Any business that's publicly traded, anything like that, there's got to be definitive guidelines there. Like you need to, make sure that these certain things are in place. But if it's just like a mom and pop store, which is what this was back in Portland, who cares? Like just don't go there. And then they were out of business in I think 8 months or something like that. Like it didn't take that long for them to be out of business. But then again, we also have to blow everything out of proportion, get completely butthurt about everything, and then freak out, which leads us to the second topic here on today's AfterBuzz. And that's the whole Ellen DeGeneres and George W. Bush thing. And that has to do with she was caught sitting with George W. And I guess a bunch of liberals were upset that she was sitting with a conservative. And this makes absolutely zero sense to me. And Ellen had the perfect response where she says, I say, love one another, not just the people you agree with. And this is the problem that really the left side has at this point. This is the left side on the video, right? It's my right, it's their left. So it's the left side, so it's over here. And it's this whole I have no tolerance for tolerance. And the unfortunate thing is that we're stuck in this battle of I don't agree with this person, so I'm going to hate them, but I'm going to talk about how I'm open to all ideas. No, you're not. Like that's being incredibly hypocritical, and it's completely against everything that you claim that you're against. It's like Antifa. Antifa claims that they're anti-fascists. Their actions and what they do is very fascist at this point, because what they're doing is acting out with violence, and what they're doing is they're also throwing this claim out there: if you don't agree with me, you're wrong, which is going to lead us to violence. That's being a fascist. So just because you call yourself something, I call myself tolerant, but I don't have any tolerance for tolerance or intolerance or whatever the case may be. That's a pretty big problem that we have here, just because it's counterproductive and it goes against everything that you claim that you're for. You should be open to, hey, you know what? Now look, if you don't like George W. Bush, fine, that's perfectly acceptable. But why do you need to bash her if she's friends with him? Like, is he that horrible of a guy? Like, he was kind of a dummy. It's kind of funny, but is it really worth getting that upset over? And that's the problem, is that we're to the point now where it's, well, if I disagree with this, I have to be so stinking upset at this point that I have to scream and yell about it, and I'm going to go jump on Twitter. I still think that 90% of Twitter is just people like surfing around, finding news stories, porn, or whatever else it is. And it's just the 10% that are this vocal minority. It's the vocal minority that keeps screwing things up, because they're the ones who are like, well, I need to get upset about this because I don't agree with this. And this enrages me to no end. Why? How is it hurting you? How is it affecting you? What is her sitting in a booth with George W. Bush? What is that doing to you? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Other than the fact that showing the fact that you're kind of a douchebag. Kay is saying, unfortunately, we are still those people. No matter how much we work on racism and homophobia, there will always be people who look against others despite being equals. As my mother will say, the world is going to hell in a handbasket. Well, you're right. There's always going to be racists. There's always going to be homophobes. There's always going to be sexists. They're always going to exist. But the only thing that we can do as a society is to let them know that that's not okay. But you don't have to take it to that level. Just kill them with kindness, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Is if you just go on with your life, and it used to not be you couldn't do that because it was so big. Being racist was perfectly acceptable. I mean, holy crap. Just look, even 50, 60 years ago, look back to the 80s, just, 30 years ago, however far back you want to go, it was far worse than it was today. But we don't like to look at it like that, because we want to be able to look at something today and say, oh my goodness, this is the worst thing ever. Remember Oscars So White, how big of a deal that was? And how bent out of shit. Yeah, Hollywood's really racist. Hollywood is super right-wing. Makes absolutely no sense. It's because we're finding things to get upset and offended about. It's easier to just move on, but unfortunately for a lot of people, they feel it's their civil obligation. And there's a lot of people out there that are going to send nasty emails, that send cranky text messages, or send out, super angry tweets. And it doesn't do anything, but they feel empowered. I got this show pulled off the air, or I got this person in trouble, or whatever the case may be. You're really not changing anything. All you're doing is showing that you just get upset over nothing, Right, producer Dave?
Absolutely.
He's being really quiet over there. He doesn't like when I go on these rants because I think he feels I'm pinning him in. Because then he's like, "You're connected to me now. Like whatever my opinions are, he's connected to him."
Yes,
it's a lot easier if he just stays quiet. So anyway, those were the two big ones that I wanted to get to today in regards to that. It's like, dude, just pump the brakes, folks. Let's just ease back on the getting offended over everything and realize that not everybody is that horrible and that bad. Yeah, this country used to be bad. Just go look at its history. It's not so much anymore. Next topic that we're going to get to, it's called Defunctland. And if you haven't heard of this, it is a YouTube channel, and they kind of take stories, unknown stories about theme parks, TV shows. And if you scroll back, it was about 2 years ago. The first one was about the history of extraterrestrial alien. It was a ride over in, I believe it was in Magic Kingdom in Tomorrowland over in Orlando, Florida. Have you ever been to Disney World?
No, just Disneyland.
Okay, so Disney World, in case you didn't know, they basically have 4 different parks. You've got Magic Kingdom, which is Disneyland. It's really just kind of a replica of Disneyland. You also have Animal Kingdom, you've got Epcot, and you've got Hollywood Studios. Now, over in Magic Kingdom, they had a ride that was called Extraterrestrial Alien. And what's really interesting about the channel Defunctland is it frequently goes back to the 80s and stuff like that when Michael Eisner first took over as CEO of Disney. And he had a lot of successes. He was behind a lot of that revival that led to The Little Mermaid, to Aladdin, to Beauty and the Beast, to Lion King, that 90s revival of the animation. But if there's one thing that it always proved that Michael Eisner struggled with, it was theme parks. For some reason, that was always very elusive to him. And one of the things that he wanted to build was a very adult ride in one of the Disney parks. So the premise of this ride originally was you've captured an alien, but it was supposed to be the alien from the movie Alien. Like that's how scary this thing was supposed to be. And you sat, those rooms. I think they're kind of like the Sky Auditoriums or the like where you go see a laser light show. Like at the local museum or whatever. It's the seats are all in a circle and they can kind of look up like this.
Looking upwards, right?
And but you're looking down at something in the middle as well. So you're sitting there, and then you would have a harness come down and it clicks down like this. And then the whole point was you've captured an alien. The alien breaks out, all the lights go off, and then it's just playing like all these sensory things at you. It's what it would do is to make it feel like it's actually standing on your shoulders. The harness would push down and it would bounce up and down to make it feel like the alien was on top of you. It would shoot like moist smoke in your face so it felt like it was breathing on you because it was pitch black in the room. You couldn't see anything. And so it was truly just about creating all of your other senses or making all of your other senses create this vision of what is going on in this room. And it was terrifying. And it lasted, I think, for about 2 or 3 years. And they eventually were like, this thing's terrifying people. We need to tear it down. But what they didn't just completely tear it down. What they did was they changed it. It's now a Lilo and Stitch ride. And so it's basically Lilo, or who's it? Lilo, is it Stitch? What's the alien? Stitch? Stitch, right?
Stitch, yeah.
Stitch. Okay, so Stitch. It's like,
if I didn't know that one.
It's like Stitch's Breakout or something like that. So it's the same plot line. It's the same storyline, except it's Stitch. And that one I have done. The Alien one closed down long before I ever made it over to Magic Kingdom in Orlando. But they did have it there with the Stitch's Breakout. I think it might be what it's called. And it's all the same stuff. It's got the harness on you and it pushes down on your shoulders. You can feel him breathing on you and you just kind of hear him bouncing around and stuff. So it's far more comedic than it was before. Wow. But that first one was really terrifying. Wow. And it's really cool going through this YouTube channel because they cover things other than Disney. There's one on here. It's the history of Kongfrontation, which was the big confrontation with Kong at Universal Studios. And it goes into the history of Pleasure Island. Did you ever hear about Pleasure Island? That was this interesting thing that Michael Eisner did in Disney World over near downtown Disney. It was this stretch, and it's probably changed since I've been there because it's been about 7 or 8 years since I've been to downtown Disney Orlando. But it was this stretch that was on this part of the water where it was like nightclubs, and it was meant for the adults. And I can't remember exactly how long it lasted, but when I ended up there, I think the first time I was probably there was like 2006, 2007. Walking through, it's a ghost town, and it's super creepy because over here you have the parking lot, and over here you have downtown Disney, and so frequently you would walk through what used to be Pleasure Island, and it was a dead zone. It was so weird, and they hadn't done anything with it. And for me, I think that was the first time I ever really saw something that was not aesthetically pleasing by Disney. Because usually, if they're building something, if they're repairing something, if they're doing anything that involves construction or tearing something down, they do a phenomenal job of covering it up. That was one thing they did great when I was over last Thanksgiving, as they were building Galaxy's Edge, the Star Wars land. The way that they block it off and the way that they do everything, they use very specific colors because the colors either match what's in the background, so they blend in, or I think it's a specific type of green that they use, and what it's designed for is like your eyes just kind of ignore it. Like it doesn't register, it doesn't stand out. So your eyes aren't attracted to it. You just kind of go right past it. And they did a lot of studies, and it's this one specific type. I think it's green that they use for that. One of the other things, have you ever heard of Videopolis?
No, not that way.
This was a teenage dance club in Disneyland. I believe it ran from 1984 to 1985 or 89. And in 1989, they opened a Videopolis East, which was a part of Pleasure Island. That's when that opened up, was 1989.
Okay.
And with Videopolis, they had at Knott's Berry Farm, one I think was called Studio K or something like that. There's two different ones, and it was designed for teenagers, preteens, 12 into 13, 14, up to 17, 18 years old, and it was a dance club, and that's what it was, and it was specifically designed for that. One of the things that they even opened up with for this Videopolis is that you could buy a season pass. I think it was like $60 or $65. That's it. So that's for the year, but you could only go into the park after 6 p.m. Meaning that the whole point of this pass was you were going to go enjoy Videopolis. There's a TV show wrapped around it. They had hosts with really awkward conversations with some of the celebrity guests that they had in and stuff, and it was super awkward. But this thing lasted for 4 years. And in this the one Defunctland video, the way they kind of describe it was the rich kids went to Videopolis and Disneyland, and then all of the working folks kids went over to Knott's Berry Farm and their dance clubs. And so there's kind of this divide, and it became this thing in the teenage landscape of Los Angeles. Like, were you one of the cool kids, one of the rich kids that got to go to Videopolis, or one of these poor kids that had to go to Knott's Berry Farm? Since then, the kids that went to Knott's Berry Farm, it's kind of become a sense of pride. Like, that was what we got to enjoy, even though that wasn't technically the cool one at the time. It's now become more cool because, that's how we want to look at it. And then ultimately what happened with Videopolis was they had it where gangs would start to show up, like actual rival gangs. And there was a murder in the parking lot at Disneyland. Yeah, that happened. Like, that was a thing that happened. And so they eventually closed it down. They still kept Videopolis East, which was over in Orlando, but they ended up closing it down. Now, if you go to Disneyland, as you're walking towards It's a Small World, you'll have that on the right, and you're going straight into Toontown. On the left-hand side, you had something called the Fantasyland Theater, and that's where they do like the big storybook show with Mickey, where he jumps into the pages of the book. That's where Videopolis was. That's where it used to be. And I'm telling you, like this, you find all of this stuff over on Defunctland, over on YouTube. And so we're getting a question here. Carla says, why here and not on YouTube? We're just trying something out. Something producer Dave and I wanted to test out. We wanted to see if we could, rock this thing on Facebook. If we had the right equipment, we would be on both Facebook and YouTube. Unfortunately, our computer's a little bit too weak for that. So for now, we're going to be on Facebook. I will still be uploading this to YouTube, though. We're saving the file. We're going to upload it to YouTube. So if you're finding this on YouTube after the fact, for the time being, we've moved over to Facebook. So we're doing the After Buzz on Facebook, 10:30 Mountain Time. And that's where you'll be able to find us, at least for now, where it's going to be live. Some of the other stuff here, by the way, this Defunctland thing, I'm serious. I have lost so much work production to this thing because it's all I watch now. But it even goes into California Adventure, which is the park that's right next to Disneyland. Have you been since California Adventure's been open?
I haven't been to Disneyland or California Adventure. Was Knott's Berry Farm was
Mhm.
also out there in 20 plus years.
Well, we need to
so,
get producer Dave out there.
Yeah, do it.
And so anyway,
Let's go
so
fun.
it goes into the whole building of California Adventure. And again, this goes to Michael Eisner and his almost inability to create theme parks, because when it first opened, I guess California Adventure, it was considered to be done very cheap. And this is how I fell into this rabbit hole of Defunctland. Is we were talking about the lawsuit that Meghan Markle has against, I think it's the Daily Sun over in the UK. It's one of the newspapers over there. And we got on the topic of Princess Diana and her dying in that car crash. And that was a ride. Okay, not exactly, follow me here. That was a ride that originally opened in California Adventure. They were planning a ride. Okay, so this is back in the 90s. Disney's planning a ride where you will travel through Hollywood, but it's a fast-paced ride where you're running from the paparazzi, which obviously that was what happened with Princess Diana, and that's what ended up killing her, was in the car crash where she was running from the paparazzi. So that was in the works. Princess Diana dies. All of a sudden, Disney's like, oh, God, we can't do this. Like, we got to figure out a way to change this thing up. So they kind of shelved it, and this is in the 90s. And then in the late 90s, they rehashed the idea as they're getting ready to build California Adventure, and ultimately what they did is they ended up with a ride called Superstar Limo. And what Superstar Limo was, arguably one of the worst rides ever created by Disney. It was a slow moving, kind of like if you're on Snow White or any of those rides in like Fantasyland. It was like that. You're just going nice and slow. And then the whole point was you're going to be traveling through Hollywood and you see all these celebrities. But since they were doing California Adventure on a budget, they could only use the celebrities that they already had the rights to, because they owned ABC I believe they owned ABC at this point, because that happened, I think, in '96. And so it was Drew Carey, Tim Allen. Remember Tim Allen, big time ABC, Disney, like he was like the guy back then. So it's all the celebrities that Disney already had rights to, and it was these really awkward 3D caricatures. And it was a terrible ride. It lasted, I think it was less than a year. It opened when California Adventure opened, and it was gone within 11 months. And what they've done, if you go to California Adventure now, when you walk into the park and you take a left, you head back towards Hollywood, you have the Mike and Sully Monsters something or other ride over there. So it's a Monsters Inc. ride. And it's hilarious because when you watch the video on Defunctland, you can see how they're using the same statues that were originally the celebrities, but they've just covered them up with something different.
Really?
Yeah, because so the Drew Carey one, he was selling tickets to something. And so his character, they don't move. They were just caricatures. They weren't really even animatronic. So he's just like swinging back and forth like this. And in his one hand, he's got a bunch of tickets. And it's just doing this thing back and forth. Now, when you ride the Monsters Inc. ride, there's they're like the hazmat guys. Remember the ones that come in when they think a kid's been there? They find a sock on the back, and they're all in like the hazmat suits. It's one of those dudes in a hazmat suit doing this thing. It's the exact same thing. They just covered it with a different shell. They covered it with a monster. And it's really weird watching all this stuff, especially having been to Disneyland and even Disney World so many times. But yeah, so go check it out. That's the YouTube channel, Defunctland. If you're just catching us now here on Facebook and you want to rewatch this whole thing, this will be saved over on YouTube as well if you want to check it out over there. I'm still deciding if we should just leave it up on Facebook. I don't see why not.
We could have to do that also.
Who knows? We're just kind of winging it here. We don't really know what we're doing. It's been a really long week for me. I was telling producer Dave, I'm not getting any sleep this week because Lucy, the new puppy dog, will not stop barking. I don't understand what in the world is going on here. We have a kennel out back, and we put her in the kennel. That's the little puppers right there. And so we usually just put her in the kennel. And on Sunday is when that horrific windstorm came blowing through. And she was not happy about that. She's barking. And it sounds nasty, like our windows are shaking and everything. So I told the wife, I'm going to go grab her kennel. We're going to put it in the garage, keep her safe, keep her out of the wind, and we'll be good to go. she didn't want to have any of that either. Like, and unfortunately, the garage is right underneath our bedroom, so it's just echoing. And the kids' room is right above the garage as well. So Lord knows if she was getting any sleep at all. And it's just bark, 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 bark. So I told my wife, I'm like, dude, I'm just gonna put her in the back and just, if that's what she wants, because clearly she wants something other than being in the kennel. So I didn't bark at all. Come out in the morning and she's perfectly content, just goofing around, digging up my damn yard. That's starting to bug me because I'm constantly having to fix the digging. But we're taking steps to try to get through it. I'm partly at fault with this. Okay, not partly. I'm pretty much at fault for this because she's the kind of puppy dog that you need to. She needs to expend energy and she needs to be around other people. She needs to be around other dogs. And unfortunately, I threw my neck out. I think it was that Sunday night. Like, this is really the first day I've been able to do this with no pain this week. And so I haven't been able to take her for runs or even walks. We've been busy with other things around the house. So it's one of those situations that, I need to be better at raising this damn dog and being more involved because she's getting bored out there. I guarantee she's getting bored out there. I would get bored out there. I would start digging up the yard if I was stuck out there. So I can't fault her for that. So the hope is today when I get home, now that I can actually do this, nice, I'm going to take her for a run. And she's getting really good at the runs, by the way. So when I first take her for a walk, she was all over the place. She wants to sniff everything. She's, all over the damn place. But after a couple times of that and getting her to learn what heel means and so that she'll be right there, all of a sudden I'm running. I started with like a nice slow jog and she's doing good. But man, I think I pushed her a little bit too far in the first few because by the time we get 2 blocks from the house, she just sit down. She's like,
go anywhere.
And I'm like, oh, because this is what happened with my dog Chewy. This is why I was never able to run with him because his legs are like this long, and he was never able to keep up. And if I went for too long, he's like, you know what, I'm not doing that. So he would never run, but she will. And I'm telling you, she's still just a puppy. If she gets bigger, when she gets taller and stuff, it's going to be tough for me to keep up with her because now for the final 2 blocks of the runs that I'm going with her, we're on a full sprint, like both me and her. Like if I trip, I'm biffing it hard. I talked about when I fell down on the AfterBuzz one time, didn't I?
Did you?
I think I did. Well, here we go. For anybody who's here on Facebook, you'll get a good laugh out of this. Where I biffed it hard when I was on a run. This was like maybe 6 months ago or so. And I was running through my neighborhood, and I'm on this one sidewalk. And as I'm running, when you get trees that are like on the sidewalk, the roots can come up and it will cause the sidewalk to be uneven. And that's right. Where it was just like it was just the slightest lip. It's like right there, like that. And I'm just running along and, I'm generally, pretty cognizant of where I'm running and what I'm doing. And man, all of a sudden I'm going and my left foot clips it and wham, straight down and gnarled up on my elbow, my shoulder. I think I even got the side of my head and stuff. It was all scraped up. But the pride is what hurt the most out of me, my friends. Because, man, I fell, and right when I go to lift myself up, I looked over, and there's a family in the car right there as they're parking to go to the YWCA that's right next to my house. And I was like, and I'm like, just go quick. It's like in my brain, I'm like, just get up quick, like nothing happened. So like when I hit down, I came up and was like, oh, and I just kind of kept rolling, and I ran like nothing happened, played it off, guaranteed they got a good laugh out of me eating it over on the sidewalk. So anyway, that's this episode of the AfterBuzz. Again, if you guys have anything that you guys want to talk about, put it in the chat now. You can always send us a message here on Facebook. You can always email as well. I don't really need to do the like thing on this. You can like the video and you can share it. Obviously here on Facebook. But yeah, so we're doing this on Facebook now. We're doing it on Facebook Live. And then we're just kind of toying around with some other ideas, kind of trying to figure some stuff out because I want to have bigger plans here for the AfterBuzz. Really quick, got to remind you guys, go check out not the AfterBuzz, this is the AfterBuzz, Rockstar 101. That's the podcast that I do with Shim, the former lead singer of Sick Puppies. The latest episode went up. We were talking about Brenna, that is the girl who has cancer that he's been raising money for. He gives us an update on that. We also talk about kind of how you gain your musical tastes. And we've talked about it on the morning show, and it's from about age 12 to 22 that you gain your musical tastes, and then it's almost locked in after that. So when you get older, you're not really experiencing new music. That's why nostalgia plays such a heavy factor in what it is that you like, or anything new that you like, simply because that's what it is. And I guess Shim really is not a big fan of a lot of cover songs. which is interesting. But that's Rockstar 101. You can check it out. It's on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. If you're watching this on YouTube and you want to check it out live and you're wondering, oh my goodness, like what happened? Why was this not on YouTube? At least live. It's because we're on Facebook today, baby. And I think we're going to do this for at least the next few to kind of check it out and feel it out and see exactly what's going on there. But do not worry if you're catching the tail end of this on Facebook and you're going to go rewatch the whole thing. If this doesn't upload properly, it will also be saved over on YouTube as well. Producer Dave, got any notes, any comments?
We booked a cruise.
Ooh, where are you
yesterday. Bahamas, perfect day at Coco Cay or something like that. It's the Royal Caribbean's private island, so we're excited about that.
You gonna go nude?
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
How many days? Are you doing like a 3-day trip, 5-day trip, 7-day trip?
It's gonna be a 4-day. It'll be 4 day. Well, it's gonna last a full week because we're looking at flight tickets and all that stuff. We're probably gonna end up driving out there, so it's gonna take about a full week. But it's a 4-day
Leaving out of
cruise.
Galveston?
No, out of Orlando.
You're gonna drive to Orlando.
Driving to Orlando. I've done
Woof.
that. I've done that driving.
Oh man, driving to Galveston is like. So, because the wife and I, when we go to Austin so frequently now, some of the times we'll drive out there and oh my goodness, Austin's 8,
Mm-hmm.
Houston's like 12,
Yeah.
and I couldn't. So, would you break that into 2?
We would probably do, yeah. We actually drove to Destin 2 years ago when we went into out
Destin,
there.
Florida?
Yes, sir. Well, it's like a 22-hour drive from here. So we stopped over in New Orleans, spent the night there, and then woke up the next morning and drove out to Destin. So, I've done it before. I was stationed over in Columbus, Georgia, not too far from Atlanta. So I've done that drive several times.
Oof.
Yeah. So it's tough, but
I do not envy you. Are you rocking it yourself, or does the wife help you out?
no, the wife left.
Okay. That makes it at least a little bit tolerable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting because I think it was 2 years ago. My wife had a conference in Houston, and we drove it. We didn't fly, we drove it.
Uh-huh.
And like we hit San Antonio, and we're like, dude, we still have like 3.5 hours, or 3 or whatever it is. It's like, holy cow, this is insane. And man, by that time, you kind of got that 1,000-yard stare going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got to make sure that you take and I'm terrible at this because one of the times when we were coming back from Austin, I was like, we're just powering through this, dear. Like, I don't care. We're just getting through this ride, man. We're getting back to El Paso quick. So yeah, those are not easy drives. But yeah, cool, man. So go enjoy your trip. And again, everybody, make sure that if you're on Facebook, give Producer Dave over here big thanks because in case you didn't know this, he does all this for free. He's not getting paid for this. So big thank you. Fernando is saying, did the drive to Galveston. It's nice until you get to Houston during rush hour. Yes, that Houston rush hour traffic sucks. That's one of the reasons why I don't think I could ever live in Houston. I don't mind the humidity as much because I lived in Florida and you kind of get used to it. It's not fun. It does suck. But at least I could live through it. But yeah, that Houston traffic sucks, man. We got lost when we were coming back through San Antonio. San Antonio's roadway system is all messed up. I remember that was something that Kevin warned me about back in 2003. This was when I first met him. He flew me out to San Antonio. He was going to try to hire me down there. It didn't work out. But as we were kind of going through stuff, he's telling me about the freeway system and how it's set up, and it made my head spin then. And even as we were driving through San Antonio to come back from Houston, we got lost. I don't even remember where we ended up. I think we ended up like near a museum or something like that. And it's one of those weird roadways where you've got a freeway down here, but you got a freeway up here. And can you actually take this exit, or do you have to be up there? It just made my head spin. Anyway, on that note, we'll be back again next week right here on Facebook for the AfterBuzz, 10:30 Mountain Time. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, don't worry, everything will be uploaded to YouTube continually, so you'll have multiple options to check out the AfterBuzz. Don't forget about the Rockstar 101 podcast and also the Buzz Adams Morning Show podcast. We've had some really good stuff recently. When we had Felipe Esparza in, I believe it was last Friday. That was a great show. He was hilarious, man. Because the best part about that was when all of a sudden Buzz is talking to him like you seem like a TV person. What are you watching? And the first thing he says is, he's in a 90-Day Fiance. Oh man! And then me and Buzz just became like little schoolgirls. We got somebody to talk 90-Day Fiance with, baby. It's awesome. Oh my goodness! I gotta wrap this up, but I just keep extending this stupid thing. But that's the thing. So Caesar, Caesar? That's the dude with the chick from the Ukraine.
Okay, yeah.
So anyways, so real quick backstory here on this. So Caesar, he's a nail tech, so he doesn't make a lot of money. He works a ton of hours to basically save money, rides a bike to and from work because he sends all of that money to this girlfriend in the Ukraine. Her name is Maria. And there's been multiple times they were supposed to meet up. They never did. Something always came up. So as they're filming the show, this is 90 Day Fiance before the 90 days, he is booking a trip to Mexico so that they can meet in Mexico. He takes like a $2,000 loan from one of his coworkers. He flies down there. She's not there.
Oh no.
Like he shows up early, but then all of a sudden he finally gets her on the phone. And she's like, oh, they canceled the flight. But as you've been watching this progress, you're like, dude, she canceled that flight. Like this dude's getting catfished. She's taking his money. He doesn't see it. They even interview some of his clientele that he does the nails for, and they're like, yeah, I don't really know how to tell it to him, but he's being catfished. And it's like, and they all know, like, dude, you're just being gullible. He sent, I think it's about $800 a month, and he's been with this chick for 5 years. So he ends up going to Mexico. She never shows up. And when he finally gets her on the phone, she breaks up with him. Okay? You would think that's where the story ends. That's not where it ends. And this is where I think we're getting hosed here. And I think TLC is padding this thing and they're paying for all of his trips. Because now, since he's come back from Mexico, he's all depressed. And he's really weird, too, because he talks about, like, he tells people this. He's like, yeah, I was ready for her. I had the flowers out. I had petals everywhere. I had the chocolate panties out. Like he was really, obsessed with, like, getting, like, candy underwear for this girl that, he's been dating for 5 years that he's never met. So now his whole plan is he's just going to buy a ticket to the Ukraine and just show up. That's where it left off on this past week's episode. So it was pretty fun, which, by the way, so that the tangent came from the Buzz Adams Morning Show podcast when Felipe Esparza was talking about 90 Day Fiance. So check it out. Buzz Adams Morning Show podcast. It's available on Google Podcasts and Apple Podcasts, as is Rockstar 101. But Rockstar 101 also available on Spotify. Buzz Adams Morning Show is not on Spotify yet, although I think we're going to be working on that. I would like it to be on Spotify. But anyway, on that note, have yourselves a fantastic Wednesday. Thanks for joining me here on Facebook. As always, big thanks to producer Dave. Oh, and I bought this. I got this stuff. We were talking about this on the show. I got a big old bag of circus peanuts. Everybody hates these things.
Including me.
Yeah. Dave hates them. Joanna wouldn't eat one. Lisa did because Lisa's never had one before. Lisa didn't like it.
Didn't like it either.
Buzz had one. He's eaten them before, but he wanted to compare it and just be like, okay, am I really remembering these things correctly? Yes, he was. They were disgusting. I don't mind them. I don't think they're all that bad. It's weird. So they're orange and they're shaped like a peanut, but they taste like banana. Like, have you ever had like a banana Laffy Taffy?
Yeah, I've had it.
That's the kind of the taste that you have. But anyway, so we got some circus peanuts. We may or may not incorporate this in the show. I forgot to buy the gummy Krabby Patties because they do have that at the dollar store as well. I'm talking about that because I don't think they taste like anything. It's just the texture of a gummy. Like, there's really no flavor to it. It's weird. But anyway, thank you for joining me here on Facebook. A big thank you to producer Dave. Have yourselves a fantastic Wednesday. As always, if there's ever anything that you want brought up on the AfterBuzz, if you have a topic, if you have a question for me, because remember, that's how this thing originally started. It was an Ask Me Anything to the morning show, because people had a lot of questions about how things operate behind the scenes. So if you have any questions, we're a pretty open book here. I'm willing to answer a lot of questions because I want to make sure that everybody's in the know of what's going on. I don't like keeping secrets from people. So if you have any questions, you can always hit us up here on Facebook. Jorge says, do a contest on the show. The loser gets to eat them. I thought about that. I also thought about doing, how you do Chubby Bunny with marshmallow peeps?
Uh-huh.
Same thing with these, baby. I'm thinking about doing that, especially considering Joanna started gagging the second I pulled these things out. So apparently she is really not a big fan of them. But anyway, on that note, enjoy your Wednesday. Again, thank you for joining me on Facebook. If you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, that's because we're currently over on Facebook Live. But you can find it right there, Buzz Adams Morning Show Facebook page. And on that note, have yourselves a fantastic Wednesday. We'll see you bright and early, 5 a.m. tomorrow morning on the Buzz Adams Morning Show.